The B-2 bomber looks nothing like a typical aircraft, because instead of having wings attached to a fuselage, the B-2 is just a flying wing. For most people, stealth is what pops into their head when they think of the B-2, and they often overlook another important aspect of this design. The flying wing is extremely efficient at generating lift, which in turn maximizes fuel efficiency. In other words, it gives the B-2 incredible range, which is critical, because stealth without range has a problem. A big problem. And this is not limited to airplanes. Even the ultimate stealth weapons, submarines, lose their superpower when they are forced to surface in order to get air for their diesel-electric engines. This is why nuclear submarines are superior, because they don't need air to run, and this allows them to remain submerged for as long as the crew has food to eat, which could be weeks at a time. Similarly, no matter how stealthy an aircraft is, it needs aerial refueling to continue flying. The issue is that the massive refueling tanker lights up on a radar like a Christmas tree. But lucky for the B-2 Spirit, the flying wings are fuel efficient enough so the aircraft can penetrate deep into enemy territory, perform its mission, and leave. Only once in safe airspace, the B-2 would quench its thirst. It's a combination of stealth and range that makes the B-2 the perfect stealth bomber. But why the flying wings suck at almost all other roles? Why they failed during World War II? What made them practical in the 1980s and why they're making a comeback in the 21st century? And finally, why the future of aviation is triangle-shaped is not what you think. Stealth is not the same as invisibility. Typical air detection radars work by emitting radio waves and detecting the echoes that bounce back from objects. Radars can determine the distance, size, and position of a target based on its echo. The size of the echo is what's known as the radar cross-section of an object. The idea behind stealth is to reduce the size of the echo. For example, the wingspan of the B-2 is not much shorter than the wingspan of the B-52. But the radar cross-section of a B-52 bomber is over 1,000 square feet, while the radar cross-section of the B-2 is just 0.15 square inch. That's about the size of an eagle's eye or a bumblebee. I should emphasize that radars are actually capable of detecting objects even that small. But for practical reasons, they need to filter out these smaller echoes. Otherwise, the radar display would look like an old analog TV, full of noise. This is how a stealth aircraft manages to hide in the clutter and avoids radar detection. The small radar cross-section of the B-2 is due to its shape and specially crafted geometry, which ensures that electromagnetic waves are reflected away from the original source. Because of this, only a small handful of signals actually manage to make their way back to the transmitter. Even the screws are perfectly flush with the body to reduce any bumps that could return signals. The aircraft is also covered with a special stealth coating that absorbs some of the radar signals. Because of this special coating, the aircraft requires air-conditioned hangars. Back in 1997, each flight hour of the B-2 bomber required 119 hours of maintenance, translating to $3.4 million per month. That expensive maintenance cost goes hand in hand with the B-2 bomber's roughly $2 billion price tag. That's because the US Air Force only produced 21 units of the B-2 instead of the original 131 that was planned. So the project's high R&D cost was split over a much smaller number of airplanes, increasing the unit cost. There is some news suggesting that the US Air Force may repeat history and scale back on its newest stealth bomber, the B-21 Raider. The thing is, news agencies can use different angles and headlines to convey a particular message. But there is a way to easily see through these biases, which is why I prefer using Ground News to consume my daily news, and they're sponsoring this video. It doesn't get much simpler than this. You basically choose your topics of interest. For me, it's military and technology, as well as a few specific countries. Ground News then compiles the relevant news articles from around the world and shows their coverage across the political spectrum. It can be interesting to see how left, right, and center cover the same news differently. I find this to be a very efficient way to cross-check information. You can then click on a particular article to go to the original source. But probably my favorite feature of Ground News is the blind spot, which brings out stories that have little to no reporting on one side of the political spectrum. So whether you're left-leaning or right-leaning, you can check your blind spots. So if you too want a better way to consume news, go to ground.news/NWIT or click the link in the description to sign up and get 40% off the Vantage plan with unlimited access to all these features. Stealth may be a requirement in the war zone, but on the way there, it can create a risk of mid-air collision with civilian aircraft. This is why the B-2 pilots stay in touch with civilian air traffic control all the way to the war zone. The aircraft is also equipped with strobe lights for visibility, which are retracted in order to stealth up. But how does the flying wing improve fuel efficiency and range? When you hold your hand out of the window of a moving car, you feel a pushback. This is called parasitic drag. This type of drag has a lot to do with the shape of the moving object, which is why switching from your palm facing the wind to being parallel to the wind reduces parasitic drag. You can then generate lift by tilting your hand up and redirecting the airflow downward, which would also generate induced drag, which pushes your hand back. The flying wing is great at reducing both types of drag, and a lot of that has to do with the aircraft not having a tail. In typical military aircraft, the tail section accounts for about 1/3 of the total surface area, which drastically increases drag. That said, the tail is where the vertical and horizontal stabilizers are, which, as the name suggests, stabilize the aircraft by preventing it from swinging side to side. The tail fin also usually houses some kind of rudder system, which aids in turning the aircraft left and right. So how does the flying wing remain stable in flight without the tail? Flying wing designs were first prototyped as early as 1910, but it wasn't until the 1940s that a legitimate flying wing bomber design was first showcased. Northrop's XB-35 and YB-35 were prototype propeller bomber designs during World War II. The idea was that with the more efficient flying wing design, they would be able to fly far enough to reach Europe in case Britain fell to Germany. Two YB-35s were eventually strapped with Allison J-35 engines and given the new designation YB-49. With no tail to stabilize them, these experimental flying wings heavily struggled with stability in flight. Eventually, they were both destroyed during test flights, and the program was cancelled in order to free up funding for other bomber designs. During the early days of the Cold War, flying wing designs fell out of favor. Both Western and Soviet air forces were instead focusing on supersonic aircraft and long-range missiles. It wasn't until the 1980s that the United States again took an interest in a flying wing design, thanks to the Soviets. By the 1970s, the Soviet air warning systems had reached a level of sophistication that American military aircraft were either too slow or lacked the range to effectively penetrate into an enemy airspace without a massive risk of getting shot down. The United States realized that they would need to use a different strategy. It just so happens that the flying wing prototypes that the military had shelved decades earlier were exactly the designs they were looking for. On August 22, 1980, the United States publicly disclosed that it was creating a new stealth aircraft under the Advanced Technology Bomber or ATB program. and 9 years later, the B-2 Spirit made its first public flight in 1989. Thanks to the advancements in digital flight control systems, the aircraft could have a stable flight while having a monolithic body with no tail. The early 2000s saw the rise of numerous drones, all using a flying wing design. In the United States, this was done under the JUCAS program, headed by the ubiquitous Defense Advanced Research Program Agency, better known as DARPA. This was a joint effort between the Navy and the Air Force that resulted in the X-47 series of drones for the Navy and the RQ-170 for the Air Force. On December 4, 2011, an Iranian electronic warfare unit downed an American RQ-170 drone, which was quickly captured and reverse-engineered. This resulted in 2 Iranian copies called Shahed 171 Simorgh and Shahed Saigeh. These drones are the first flying wing designs in service in Iran, and so far they've been only used to spy on surrounding regions. That said, they could be upgraded in the future to carry weapons. Additionally, these captured designs will be available for export, spreading the use of flying wing designs to other countries. Russia has also begun fielding its own set of flying wing stealth drones, known as the S-70 Hunter combat drone, which largely serves in the same role as their American counterparts. Even though still in prototyping stage, they are set to be part of Russia's future 6th-generation projects, serving as wingman aircraft to the Su-57 stealth fighter. Their role would include providing extra sensors and countermeasures against incoming threats. But even though the flying wing is perfect for stealth bombers and drones, it sucks for almost everything else. Fighters need to be quick and maneuverable, which the flying wing is not. Tankers and cargo airplanes need a high volume of cargo compared to their size, which is also not offered by flying wings. They're also not particularly suited for passenger transport. A tube-shaped fuselage is structurally much better suited to resist the fatigue of repeated pressurization cycles. It's a lot more difficult to have a large pressurized volume in a flying wing due to its shape. Another issue is emergency evacuations, where passengers must be able to evacuate the airplane in under 90 seconds. Evacuating a wing-shaped fuselage is not as intuitive as leaving a tube. This is why a new hybrid design concept has emerged, which is called blended wing body or hybrid wing body. This new design attempts to combine the internal volume of tube and wing aircraft with the low drag of flying wing aircraft. Unlike a strict flying wing, blended wings have a main fuselage and separate wings. However, the entire aircraft smoothly transitions from body to wings, without any separation. These fuselages are known as lifting bodies, because unlike a traditional fuselage, they help produce lift. This is even more efficient than a pure flying wing, which cannot use the primary portion of the body to generate lift. Blended body designs reduce what is called the wetted area. This is the total surface area of the plane that's subject to airstream while in flight. Wetted area is a holdover from shipbuilding, referencing the part of the boat that sits underwater. According to some reports, the world's first 6th-generation fighter that's being developed by the United States under the NGAD program will be utilizing a blended wing design. These designs reduce the amount of reinforcement needed to support the structure of the wings, which results in a lighter aircraft. And lighter aircraft results in longer range and heavier payloads, all while maintaining the stealth benefits seen on older flying wing designs, like the B-2. Military aside, several civilian companies are working on designing blended wing designs for carrying passengers. The blended wing is 50% more fuel efficient, as claimed by Mark Page, founder and CEO of JetZero, a company that focuses on blended wing aircraft. The Airbus Corporation is also running scale models of blended wing-body aircraft, which are in essence the most expensive remote-controlled planes you'd find anywhere. These smaller technological demonstrators, known as Mavericks, are being used to test design features for future large-scale air travel. As countries develop and implement ever more sophisticated early warning and air defense systems, any future strategic bomber would have to incorporate stealth technology. This is why the flying wing designs are yet again making a comeback. The US government publicized the first flight of the new B-21 Raider in November 2023. The B-21, developed by Northrop Grumman, was created under the Long-Range Strike Bomber program, designed to carry both conventional and nuclear munitions. The B-21 is set to eventually replace the aging B-2, which has become difficult and more expensive to repair as time goes on, and the B-1 Lancer, which, while capable, is not a dedicated stealth aircraft. It could even go on to replace the venerable B-52, the longest-serving military aircraft in US history. But other military powers are not sitting still. The Russians are currently testing their secretive Tupolev Pakda to replace the aging T-95 bombers still in active service. These are expected to enter service in 2027, but their capabilities and technology are closely guarded secrets. China has been a bit more public with the development of their new flying wing stealth bomber. The Xi'an H-20 was first revealed in 2016 and included a published video copying that of the American Air Force's reveal of the B-21. The H-20 reportedly has the ability to reach the second island chain in the Pacific, specifically at strategic military bases inside Guam and Hawaii. However, reports from the US Department of Defense claim that the capabilities of the new stealth bomber fall well below that of even the B-2, which is several decades old at this point. So while the next generation of flying wing aircraft is still hidden behind classified documents and black budgets, the future of military aviation will without a doubt be very triangle-shaped.